All right, gaining a following in TikTok. So we did an experiment over the last week, or I did an experiment over the last week. If you want to gain a following in TikTok, it's not very difficult. You do have to put some money towards it if you want to do it, because unless you want to wait organically for the results. Now, my objective here was to get above 1,000 followers. I've been making posts for a while, and I found one of the posts that seemed to be working pretty well. It got a couple hundred views right away, and seemed like there was some good comments on it. And I noticed, and this is important for you to realize, is that if you want to do this correctly to get a low cost per result, meaning a low cost per follower in the US, you're going to have to pick something that has engagement. And that's what I figured out, which was a lot of people want to go to do TikTok live to test out the waters of pitching themselves, either services or being a coach or whatever you want to do. You want to be a guru of some topic, but you're going to have 1,000 followers. And you can get lucky and maybe one of your posts goes viral, or maybe something happens where you find some topic that is relevant and it continues to grow. In most of the cases, what happens is people post, they may get a couple hundred people viewing it, and there's no comments, and it's just another sort of piece of content in the world. But if you do something that hits a nerve where you see that, you're getting a couple hundred comments or 1,000 comments, or 1,000 views, excuse me, and it's getting some comments, well, that means it's hit a nerve. And so I did a post about whatever, jealousy and stuff like that, which relates back to business topics. People liked it. So I said, okay, let's test this one out, because I wanted to get above 1,000 followers so that I could do some TikTok lives. I want to experiment with it. There's some things I want to do that, because we work with a lot of clients that are, let's just call them their personal coaches slash, they're people who are, involved in influencing, and not necessarily they're going to like kill it or anything like that. But they are there. We have one in particular coach that is doing quite a bit of work in TikTok, and we're trying to experiment with some of the phrase work that he's doing. And I want to work in some of the lives to understand what the mentality is. And there's another piece of this, which I'm not going to get into in this particular video, but I wanted to just go through the numbers and get your head around if you want to do this and you want to, let's say, post live TikToks, and you want to get on, and let's say you're trying to get to your first 1,000 subscribers, and you don't want to spend a lot of money to do it. Well, here's how I did it. And the goal here is that I was spending roughly about $50 a day, and I was getting about a 20-cent per cost follow. Now, that's about 1/5 of the cost that I've understood, which is a cost for a US subscriber. Now, you can get non-US subscribers anytime you want for pennies if you want to just throw it out there, but that's not going to help you, especially with the algorithm. But if you want US-based subscribers, people are actually going to respond to you and give you an answer back. I basically added about 1,500 subscribers or 1,500 followers at 20 cents a piece over a week, right? So I spent about $50 a day. And I basically, when I got to about 2,000 subscribers, I said, okay, that's plenty. I could have stopped when I had 1,000, but I figured I'd get to 2,000 just so it didn't look like I was just over the line, but I had, plenty of room in case there was a fallback, right? Which is the other thing I was thinking about, which is that, hey, some people subscribe and they unsubscribe. So I just said, okay, let's just do it that 2,000. But this is how it worked, was that and if you need help with this, certainly, you can go through any tutorials that there are for putting up a TikTok ad. It's not very difficult. It took me probably about 15 minutes to put the ad together, pick the audience, and then get it started. But the result structure here is what you really want. So the process of getting someone from a subscriber in an organic strategy, meaning if you're trying to just post stuff and hope that people will follow you, it'll probably take a long time because there's just too many people on this structure. So if your processing in your head is like, hey, I want to get into lives, well, if you're trying to do it organically, it's just not going to get what you really want. Typically, again, unless you hit some random variable that picks you up. But in this methodology, what I also noticed was that the consistency of the, let's just call it engagement, stayed pretty strong. So it wasn't as if people just followed me randomly. They actually posted. So I had, in this particular case, I think I had about 300 comments. It's a lot of comments or a lot of engagement. So the engagement stayed pretty steady. And I think that helped the cost per acquisition, because the cost per acquisition stayed around, as you can see here, I'll just go through the numbers real quick. It stayed in between roughly, from when I started to when I finished, was between 18 to 24 cents. So as the post got a little bit further down the pipeline, it was picking up steam, but it was also costing more per result. So again, I think a 20 cent per acquisition for a US follower, so that you're not screwing up your algorithm for your TikTok account, it's pretty decent. 34,000 impressions. Again, that doesn't really mean anything, because at the end of the day, all I really care about is, did I end up where I wanted to be, which was that I had 1,000 followers. So lessons learned. One of the things that I would now do, which is that I've got, sort of an understanding of how this might work, is to create an offer, right? So I've built a little bit of an audience. The question mark is always going to be, is the offer going to actually play out? Now, offers for me could result in people joining my group, which is there's no money involved in that, but also people going to my consulting link, people going to a piece of content that I might deliver. So there's a couple of different variations of a theme of what I want to do, and also what niche I want to hit for doing this, these ads in TikTok. The difference that I see between Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all these different things is that obviously the audience skews younger for TikTok, just because that's where it's coming from, right? You're adding in a lower level of person because they've not obviously experienced life yet. So your revenue for this channel might be light. And I'm going to talk about that in my next video about how I see the different channels and what they represent. But in reality, what we've got here is an opportunity to now go live, right? So the next stage will be, okay, great. Now I'm going to go into the live format, which will mean that I will start to go on to a morning session where I am going to take clients in and audit websites, or talk about coaching, online business, and things that I've done for the last 15 years or so, that I can help somebody with either growing their business or understanding how it works. And potentially, again, this is more of an experimental thing at this level, because I've talked to other coaches in this space, meaning I've worked in signing up for other online coaches within TikTok through their paid programs and seeing what they offer, and also non-paid offers, and ask them how their journey has gone and what they're doing and how they make money on this structure with doing lives in TikTok, and then getting people either into groups or getting into people into consultations. And it is a totally mixed bag. And again, that's what I totally appreciate with, people who are being brutally honest, which is that TikTok is a different animal than Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, because it's a different skew of audience. There are the same people out there. There's just less of them. So the good thing is that the reach is there. You can quickly get an audience. You can quickly build yourself for very inexpensively, as long as you have a good piece of content, as I explained before. You can quickly build yourself into at least having a decent little audience. And then when you want to run ads to do an actual offer, or you want to do lives, you at least have some sort of threshold of an audience so that it doesn't look like you're just, blank slating this going forward. So we're going to experiment with the next two things, which is I'm going to try some lives within the next week and work on doing what I would consider the value of understanding what the market wants. And I think that's the key here, because I want to test out this model where there's opportunities to coach for what it's worth, for understanding what people are gravitating towards once I go live. And the second thing is running an ad based off of where our ideal candidates might be. Now, we know that we want to work with coaches and consultants and thought leaders and influencers, which are all over TikTok. But the question mark comes back to, is this where they look? And is this where they start to get their process started to evangelize what they want to do, so that, we look at some of these people that are starting to be aggressively in the space. Now, some people, depending on where they are, again, B2B versus B2C versus, C2C. I mean, there's so many different topics and variances here. So we're going to have to find out what works the best. And again, it's great to experiment this stuff, but the net of this is that 20 cents a follower, which is, again, about 1/5 the cost of what I've heard for US based subscribers. And again, because I think I set up the content to be the way that I set up the content, and you can look on my pinned post if you're interested in seeing which post this is in TikTok that did get the engagement. And I think it's because the way that this works, and the fact that I believe that why the cost per acquisition for the followers was so low is because I started off with something that was breaking the sort of fourth wall in this particular case, where I believe that I went beyond what people expected, and so it shocked them a little bit, and then they listened. So that's maybe not the fourth wall, the best way to describe it, but I think there's a 5 second or five, just if you can get them to listen to the first statement that you make, it tends to get people to stay on more. And I think there's a huge challenge with a lot of people who just start to talk about whatever they're talking about in TikTok, if they're trying to do what I'm trying to do, which was I was trying to get a post that was active and engaging. And also, I think the other part that you're probably learning here is that you certainly can spend more money and get the followers if you want. So you can put a post that's maybe not so creative and not so active, but you're going to pay $1 or $2 per follower just because it's expensive if you have material that's not valuable for somebody. So that's your lesson for today in the world of TikTok.